radical left has taken over the Democratic Party.
Hello and welcome to Think Progressively, covering politics and all the other chaos life has to offer. This is episode 134, recorded on Friday, September 20th from Milwaukee. I'm Joe.
And I'm Jason.
And on today's episode, we take a look at Project 2025's secret training videos and discuss the insanity within them. But first, the headlines.
You can do it, baby. I love you so much. Magic. And it's bad news. Bad things are happening. Mom, I'm sorry. Mom, I didn't do it. Boom. Didn't do it.
First up in headlines, Strike 2, another swing and miss.
Jesus Christ. Last Sunday, Secret Service engaged a possible shooter at Trump's golf course in West Palm Beach. An agent found a gun poking out of a bush and immediately engaged and started shooting at the individual. Secret Service then pursued and arrested the individual. The shooter's weapon was identified as an SKS-style rifle, which slightly predates the AK-47.
So at least we have some variety in our assassins.
Yeah, not just an AR-15 this time.
Yeah, we got some difference.
Now, I want to get your take on this because, we are security professionals here and we know what we're doing. Despite the absolute nationwide criticism of the Secret Service, they are very angrily defending themselves, saying that this is actually the system working.
Yeah, and I don't see how it's not. The guy never even got close to Trump, never even got in his sight at all. That the Secret Service were walking ahead of Donald Trump as he was doing what he always does, golfing.
Yep.
And they spotted this rifle barrel one hole ahead, so the guy never even had a chance to even catch sight of Trump, let alone get a shot off. And they immediately, like you said, they immediately engaged, chased him off. They called in reinforcements. Someone got a picture of his vehicle. They were able to track him down. I mean, what else are we expecting? Like, that is exactly the way it should go. Do they think there should have been a Secret Service agent in every tree around the entire golf course?
Well, so that's the big thing. And I can't remember, there's a name for these, and it's political jargon that I should know, but I don't. But basically, this is unlike a typical event that you are notified ahead of time and Secret Service is notified ahead of time. This is one of those spontaneous events that you basically use to duck away from media and whatnot. And because of that, Secret Service is usually less prepared. And apparently, according to stories that I've seen, is that Secret Service has been actually very critical of Donald Trump for going out and doing all this golfing that he has been doing because it's so difficult to protect him in those wide open areas. And because these are spontaneous, it's like a double whammy where you have wide open areas where anyone can see you from a mile away and you have less agents to protect you there. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I also agree with the Secret Service. I mean, this sounds like it was the system working. I think people are just kind of freaked out from the last really close attempt that happened in Pennsylvania, and now they're just seeing any headline as really bad or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Do better, potential assassins.
Jesus Christ. So let's talk a little bit about the shooter. We're not going to say the name, obviously, like we always do, but the shooter did have an extensive criminal history, including having a standoff with police for having a weapon of mass destruction in 2002.
A machine gun,
yeah.
In fact.
And because this is what we're going to be talking about in a bit, it was uncovered that the shooter did vote for Donald Trump in 2016, but wrote later that he regretted it and voted for Biden in 2020. Other searches found that he supported Nikki Haley in the Republican primary.
He also appealed to Vivek Ramaswamy on Twitter.
I think he was also like a Bernie guy at one point too. Like, he was just all over the place.
Mm-hmm. He does seem to have a bit of a libertarian bent as well.
Sure. I'm like, I don't know. Whatever. It's just a guy who's unhinged and needs mental health treatment. Like, this is...
And shouldn't have
a gun.
But, it's America, so we don't do anything to try to keep guns out of the hands of these guys.
And of course, Republicans are going to do the responsible things and make sure we tamp down on all the tension and anxiety over this, right? Absolutely not. No, we are going to fan the flames and make sure that more violence happens because of this. We first off start with Trump's VP candidate, J.D. Vance, who said no one has tried to kill Kamala Harris in the last couple of months, and 2 people now have tried to kill Donald Trump in these last couple of months. I'd say that's pretty strong evidence that the left needs to tone down the rhetoric and needs to cut this crap out. Somebody's going to get hurt by it, and it's going to destroy our country.
And I believe he specifically pointed out Democrats saying that Donald Trump is a fascist and a threat to democracy. Things that Donald Trump has said about Kamala Harris dozens of times now.
Right, exactly. It's, again, this insane double standard that Republicans are just allowed to just say the craziest things possible. But then if we ever have a bit of like fighting language ever or call a spade, oh no, now it's too over the line. It's ridiculous.
If Trump does not want to be known as a fascist,
he shouldn't be a fascist
to democracy, then yeah, he should stop doing both of those things consistently. And geez, it is kind of a wonder how both of these people now that have attempted to kill Donald Trump were both once his supporters.
Yep.
It's almost like he attracts these kinds of people.
Yep.
But it's all the Democrats' fault. Tone down your rhetoric, Joe.
Elon Musk also did his best skeptic thing and tweeted out, and no one is even trying to assassinate Biden and Kamala, thinking face.
And this was in response to one of his burner accounts, Doge Designer.
No, that's his?
Allegedly.
Oh my God.
Who tweeted, why they want to kill Donald Trump. This is definitely Elon, because even that style of like baby talk, he has been proven to have done in the past.
Ugh.
With other accounts. He's cosplaying as his own kid, as in a baby voice that's just like this.
Yeah, that's what a really sane person
Yeah,
does.
Elon Musk is very weird. No wonder he's now a Republican.
And he later took it down saying, oh, don't worry, it was just a joke.
Right, after being contacted by the Secret Service. And he is currently under investigation for this post.
I wonder why. And this is what infuriates me about this whole thing as well, is that you have Democrats coming out and saying this is really bad, this should never happen, violence is never the answer. Yes, boring, typical things you expect politicians and influencers to do, but fine. And then you have crazies like this who are losing, well, why isn't anyone trying to assassinate the other side? Their brains are so freaking broken.
Well, and I mean, also the motive, which this guy's still alive, so hopefully we'll able to actually get some information from him, unlike the previous assassination attempt. But he's a big Ukraine supporter, so that's probably one of the big motivating factors here, is he knows that Donald Trump is heavily aligned with Russia and Vladimir Putin, and if he gets in office, would probably signal the end for any U.S. funding towards Ukraine, and really lead to Russia eventually winning that war and taking over Ukraine. And I think it's not, because Kamala Harris says mean things about Donald Trump.
Right.
And I do think now that we have had multiple people trying to take shots, and one successfully taking shots at Donald Trump. There's been a lot of reports that Donald Trump has had issues with fundraising. He's being very heavily out fundraised by Kamala Harris. I have an idea.
Oh, you do?
Like at carnivals where you have like the dunk tank where you throw baseballs and you try to dunk let's just give everybody assault rifles and let them take shots at Donald Trump. You can charge a lot more for that sort of thing. And you can have him walking back and forth like the ducks at the shooting gallery. Every time you take a shot, he turns around. This is call me, Republican strategists.
Hey, look, I don't think they need your advice because they have plenty of great ideas, like doing their own cryptocurrency right now. All right. They have more bigger things on their plate.
My idea is there's way more people that want to shoot Donald Trump than want to buy his cryptocurrency. I think I'm giving it away, but you're welcome.
Next up, J.D. Vance has been having a pretty tough week, and he's been trying to defend his insane...
Oh, they love it. The Republicans love the fact that this is the major news story currently.
It's so weird.
They think this works in their favor.
Because they're weird.
So, of course, we're talking again about the false claims of Haitian immigrants eating pets in Springfield, Ohio. J.D. Vance was recently on on CNN being interviewed by Dana Bash, who really tried to take him to task about this and asked him why he keeps repeating these lies when he's been told over and over again that it's not true. And I'm not sure if you want to call this a gaffe or if he really just doesn't care that he actually came out and said the truth about what's going on here.
The American media totally ignored this stuff until Donald Trump and I started talking about cat memes. If I have to,
But it wasn't just a meme,
create stories so that the American media actually pays attention to the suffering of the American people, then that's what I'm going to do, Dana, because you guys are completely letting Kamala Harris coast. You had one interview with her.
So because he feels that the media is being too favorable towards Kamala Harris, it's okay if he makes up racist stories about a group of immigrants legally in this country, says over and over again that they're here illegally, that they were placed there by Kamala Harris, another lie, and that they're eating people's pets, again a lie, which then stokes violence and hatred towards that group.
Yep.
That he is actually supposed to represent as the senator of Ohio.
Well, did you hear about the cat in the basement story?
Yes, he provided as proof
That this was
his
happening.
claims are true.
Again, they're like tripling down on this.
First-hand accounts from my constituents. Here's a police report that a Trump superfan made in Ohio about her cat going missing and claimed that her Haitian neighbors killed and ate the cat, except that it came out recently that no, the cat was just in her basement, and she apologized to her neighbors while wearing a Trump shirt and hat and having a big Trump banner behind her on her lawn.
I'll include this story in the show notes, but it's also worth noting that apparently the Wall Street Journal found out that the J.D. Vance office, which gave the story to the Wall Street Journal, also already fact-checked that police report and already knew it was false by the time they
I'm
gave
not
it to
surprised.
him.
He doesn't care. He just said.
Right.
It's fine if he makes shit up because it brings in attention, because he wants negative attention towards Kamala Harris for the campaign. That's literally what he said.
Well, and kind of like what you're saying before is that Republican advisors for the Trump campaign are legitimately happy about this because, like, well, we're talking about immigration now, I guess.
But we're really not. We're talking about how much of a bunch of weird group of liars the Republican Party is, and why they're continuously lying to the American people and trying to stoke hatred and division, and how they're a bunch of freaks.
Right. Well, and again, it's causing damage in the state, too.
Yeah, well, like we talked about last week, the bomb threats, they're shutting down hospitals and schools with these bomb threats. Do you think that's what anyone in Springfield, Ohio wants? You think you're helping the people of Springfield that you constantly talk about? That's why you're doing all of this? No, you're hurting them all. Well, but you don't care because it's really about you.
Well, and that's a good segue because I also have a quote from Ohio Governor Mike DeWine, who is also a Republican, by the way, where he went on ABC to fight against these lies, saying, look, there's a lot of garbage on the internet, and, you know, this is a piece of garbage that was simply not true. There's no evidence of this at all. There are hate groups coming into Springfield. We don't need these hate groups. I saw a piece of literature yesterday that the mayor told me about from purportedly the KKK. Look, Springfield is a good city. They are good people. They are welcoming people. We have challenges every day. We are working on those challenges. This idea that we have hate groups coming in, this discussion has to stop. We need to just focus on moving forward and not dogs and cats being eaten. It's just ridiculous.
And that's why I endorse Donald Trump for president.
Right.
Womp womp.
But I think the fact that you have the Republican governor even coming out saying this is absolutely insane just shows how harmful this is.
It is disgusting. And it again shows what they do to try to gain political power.
Well, again, this is their playbook. This is what they want to talk about.
Right. They think this helps them.
Right.
And I personally, I don't see it.
Well, and even then, you can just ask anybody. So is this the campaign and administration you want running your country?
Yeah, I think for the most part, the voters that are left, that are undecided, that maybe don't like Kamala Harris because she's a Marxist communist, but they're not really sold on Donald Trump just because he's such an agent of chaos, this is not going to help you win them over.
No, it's not.
And I think that's what, honestly, the Republicans would need to do to win at this point. Things are not looking good. Every poll that comes out, they're losing ground. This is not the winning strategy. They need to to appear normal, right? Like, when did all of this start with really losing ground? When people like Tim Walz started calling them weird and pointing out how much of a bunch of weird freaks the entire modern GOP is.
Well, and we talked about, like, they can't, though. That's who they are. Like, they're so entrenched in their own bubble. We even talked about how they were after the debate where Trump went to the spin room and he vented with Fox News about, like, I can't believe the moderators just called me out about the cats and dogs thing. They just don't care. And Sean Hannity, I think it was like, I can't believe they did it either. Put me on because that's what we'll talk about. Because that's all they care. They're just weird people, man.
Well, and the latest, they're actually holding hearings and writing letters to ABC News, accusing them of working with the Harris campaign and giving Kamala Harris the questions for the debate ahead of time. And that's how she made Trump look so stupid.
Oh, yeah.
Even though what she won on was not having just the most amazing answers to the questions. Not at all.
Well,
in fact, she dodged the questions and basically baited Donald Trump into ranting like a lunatic. Right. It had nothing to do with her performance.
And oh man, who would have guessed that immigration, abortion, and healthcare were going to come up during the presidential debate? Jesus, who could have guessed that one?
Yeah, but that's what they're spending their time on. They have a signed affidavit from a whistleblower at ABC News.
I saw, or no.
Which I'm sure is just as legit as that police report.
Wasn't it like Elon Musk was the one that was retweeting that one? And like the account was like some like True Patriot 8969 something. I'm like, what the hell is this? These people are wild.
And speaking of weird freaks that are running for office in the GOP, we have the story that's very recent, just been blowing up the last week. North Carolina GOP nominee for governor, the current lieutenant governor of North Carolina, Mark Robinson, has had his years-old porn forum account come back to haunt him.
What a wild world we live in, man.
Who goes to a porn forum?
I don't know.
And engages with like a lengthy history of posting on these porn forums, including Naked Africa. You are a special kind of weirdo to do that. Like, that's like somebody's like, yeah, I got my Pornhub.
Well, I was just saying, like, so what do you do on a porn forum?
Apparently type all sorts of crazy stories and just
admit to all the crimes you did.
Right, just be like the weirdest flag out freak that you can possibly be, because that is exactly what Mark Robinson was doing.
So weird.
So this is coming from a CNN investigation that uncovered these posts. They're from 2008 to 2012. Read them. Find the unedited ones if you really want to be freaked out. Like, it's bad. If you go to the CNN, you'll see the more tame, censored versions.
Man, these aren't that tame either.
But yeah, he talked about like wanting to or putting ladders in bathrooms so he could peep in on the stalls, which for someone who is championing a keep the trans out of the bathrooms bill, we need to keep Mark Robinson out of the bathrooms bill.
No kidding.
I don't even know where to start with it. There's just stories about him sleeping with his wife's sister, lots of like Trump-esque golden shower stuff.
I did hear about the pee showers.
Yeah, fecal fetish stuff.
Oh,
it's not something even we want to talk about here. And being like, also maybe not a surprise for us living in Milwaukee with our former sheriff David Clark, but also extremely racist against black people for a black man.
Yeah.
So how do we know this is him? Well, according to CNN, Mark Robinson listed his full name on his profile for, as we said, Nude Africa, as well as using an email address that he used on numerous websites for many, many years on the internet.
Oh boy, Mark, buddy.
And probably the thing making the most headlines is that in one of these forums that was discussing black Republicans in 2010, Robinson posted, "I am a black Nazi."
Also, I just like how the story covers it too, which is Robinson stated unprovoked.
Is there ever a provocation for that? He also posted, slavery is not bad. Some people need to be slaves. I wish they would bring it back. I would certainly buy a few.
Oh, please tell him about his love affair with Martin Luther King Jr., by the way.
Well, in a series of 7 posts in October of 2011, Robinson disparaged Martin Luther King in very intense terms, calling him a commie bastard, worse than a maggot, a hoe-blanking phony, and a huckster. Robinson also referred to Martin Luther King as Martin Lucifer slur I'm not going to repeat. Which, okay, but does actually explain a really awkward, rambling story that Donald Trump told during a rally in North Carolina where he compared Robinson to MLK while endorsing Robinson for governor. So let's hear that.
Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. But, you know, I heard him coming in on the plane. I was listening, and I said to the people on the plane, watch this. This is Martin Luther King on steroids, okay? Now, I told that to Mark. I said, I think you're better than Martin Luther King. I think you are Martin Luther King times 2. And he looked at me, and I wasn't sure, was he angry because that's a terrible thing to say, or was he complimented? I have never figured it out, but I'm telling you, he's one of, right? When I said that to you, you looked like, I don't know if I like that comment. You should like it, because you are outstanding, and you're going to be the next governor.
My God.
When I compared you to Martin Luther King, it didn't seem like you were very happy about that. Well, now we know why. Now it makes perfect sense.
What I love about that clip now is that the story back then was Donald Trump said something super insanely racist, and the black guy running for governor didn't like that. But then we find out the black guy running for governor is even more racist. And he didn't like it because he was way more racist than what Donald Trump was being.
He didn't like being compared. I think Martin Luther King is literally the only black person that Donald Trump can ever think of.
Oh, I think so too. I mean, let's be real here. MLK is probably the only black person most Republicans can ever think of.
Most Trump voters. But, you know, now with things that are in the news currently, I thought there's probably a better comparison than Martin Luther King that Trump can use when referring to Mark Robinson. Remember, the GOP candidate for governor in North Carolina. Now he can say, like, he reminds me of Sean Puffy Combs, but on steroids. So I think that's probably the better comparison.
Oh no.
Of course, Robinson denied that the statements posted to the forums were his. After being questioned by CNN, he said, "This is not us. These are not our words. And this is not anything that is characteristic of me." Presented with the litany of evidence connecting him with the account Mini Soldier on Nude Africa, Robinson said, "I'm not going to get into the minutia of how somebody manufactured these salacious tabloid lies." So whoever did this really had to think ahead.
Right.
And like, this guy, he's not anybody right now, but man, in like 13, 14 years, he's going to be running for governor, and this'll get him. Or they have a time machine, one or the other. Either they're really forward thinking or time machine.
And you say that like it's crazy, like he didn't also just go on national TV to say those exact things in defense of all this.
And if you think, well, you know, you got to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he's not a
do we?
Who is like such a crazy porn freak that they go on porn forums to have discussions. You'd have to be a real weirdo to do that. Well, we actually have another vector of evidence for this.
Oh no, I don't know this one.
There have been stories being published for the last month about Robinson's porn addiction after 6 former employees and customers of Greensboro, North Carolina area porn shops.
Oh, I do know this one. Oh,
came
boy, yep.
forward to talk about how Robinson frequented their establishments daily in the 90s and 2000s. There is even a song on YouTube that we will link to by one of those employees, which is about how Robinson still owes him $25 for bootleg hardcore porn videos that the employee sourced from New York City because they were too extreme for North Carolina.
Jesus.
The song recounts how Robinson bought videos from him very frequently. I believe he said about once a week for years.
Oh, man.
And paid most of the time, but somehow must have forgotten about the $25. The stories, this guy said that he worked at this porn shop 5 days a week, and Robinson was there every single day for years. And this is like one of the booth ones, you know, where you go and you watch the videos and jerk off in the back.
Yeah, man.
Those. And Robinson worked at a local pizzeria, and every day
he'd bring like pizza into it.
Yeah, he would after his shift, he didn't bring a pizza every day, but that's what the guy remembered, is like he literally brought like a large pizza in the back. And he would stay there for hours every single day.
It's so weird.
Yes, that is so absolutely weird. And that is the GOP gubernatorial candidate for North Carolina.
That's the secret backstory of like dirt someone would have like on House of Cards to make it more dramatic, and then they'd be like, that's a bit too sensationalist. I don't think no one's gonna believe this is real. Well, we have reality now.
Right.
Satire is dead.
And this could actually harm Trump's presidential campaign, because North Carolina is generally thought to be pretty safe for Trump. But if Republicans don't come out to vote in this race because their candidate is
insane,
is guilty of all of these things, which, again, I'm not trying to morally condemn Mark Robinson for this. Morally, I don't care. I don't think I want my governor to have had this kind of history. That's a little too much for me. Like, if Tony Evers was like,
I will say, after the Greensboro story came out, there were people that were saying, so if he does get elected as governor, how much time?
Don't shake his hand.
How much?
Don't do that.
How much time is he really gonna be working, or just staying in the back room?
Right. But yeah, I mean, look, whatever the guy does in his free time, that's his business. Again, I don't know if that's what I want for my governor. But this is also a guy who has condemned homosexuality as a moral sin, has condemned transgender people. Again, he's pushing the
crazy bathroom bill and things like that. Yeah.
And he's such a born again Christian. He loves him some Jesus.
But this happens all the time, man. Like, the crazier they are, the more likely we'll find some crazy story in their background that just shows they're a complete hypocrite.
Yep.
It happens almost every time.
Yes. And evangelicals still fall for it over and over and over again.
God.
M&Ms will not be satisfied until every last cartoon character is deeply unappealing and totally androgynous. Until the moment you wouldn't want to have a drink with any one of them. That's the goal. When you're totally turned off, they've won.
Boy ain't right.
As if that last story was not Foxed in the Head enough. For Foxed in the Head this week, this is one that we've been sitting on for a few weeks. We found out about this while we were on break for COVID and everything else. I have to play this. I know it's an audio-only format. You're missing out on most of it. Please go to our site on Buzzsprout, or just search in YouTube for Trumpy Trout. You'll find it. But we'll link to the video in case you have a hard time, but you shouldn't. Just type in Trumpy Trout. I swear to you all, this is a real product that is really being marketed towards Donald Trump fans somehow on places like Newsmax. They are running this ad for real. People have seen it on Newsmax. It's called Trumpy Trout. Think of the old Billy Bass that was like on the plaque and used to like move around and sing. It's that, but it's clearly a carp, even though, which is why I think this is totally not an actual Trump fan thing. This is someone who hates Trump that made this, because it is a bottom sucking carp, not a trout. That is the fish model for this, and it looks like Donald Trump. It's got the hair, but we're gonna go through the video, and I just listen to all of it. It is insane, and you just have to experience this.
A message from the 45th President of the United Ponds of America.
Let's make fishing great again, okay?
He's here, everyone's favorite fish, Trumpy Trout.
No one has ever seen a fish like me.
Trumpy Trout is an animatronic talking fish with a big personality.
I am the hugely bigliest fish in the pond.
Watch his fins flap and his large mouth move as he makes speech after speech in high-fidelity sound.
I mean, this has to be a parody, right? There's no way.
It does not seem like it should be real. Again, it's really, really jowly looking. It looks like someone trying to make fun of Donald Trump. It's got this big, like, dick-sucking mouth on it. It looks like a fish light, like a fish light.
Well, and it's so weird because they're doing like this fun for the whole family thing, and then it shows like the whole family recording Trumpy Trout with their phones.
They're all, honestly, if I saw somebody with one, I would do that too, but not because I like Donald Trump so much.
Okay, I love this YouTube comment that says, this is a real product and ad. The SNL writer room is really upset they didn't think of it first.
Right, like this is something that you would make as a goof on Donald Trump and like all the dumb marketing that surrounds him, like the Trumpy bear and all that.
Right.
But it's real.
Some bass are bad fish, crazy fish, criminal fish, and druggy fish. But some bass are good fish, and I only love some of them.
Mount him to your wall or use the built-in stand to display him proudly on your desk. Now you'll never miss a Trumpy Trout rally.
I'm building a new pond, and the bass will pay for it.
I think the bass are Mexicans?
Yeah.
In this scenario?
Yeah. So, like, okay, here's where I'm confused. Is this not a parody?
Yeah, again.
That's what I would say to make fun of him.
Yeah, this is a real, you can go to trumpytrout.com. It's expensive. It's $60.
Yeah,
My wife will
$59.95.
not, plus you got to pay shipping and handling. My wife will not allow me to buy this thing at full price.
It's really sad.
So either I'm going to put up like a GoFundMe so somebody out there can buy this thing for me so I can have it because I really want one, or hopefully after the election when Trump loses, these things will be available like the Billy Bass were.
Sure.
You know, like you pick them up at Goodwill or something. But this thing is, I don't understand why anyone who supports Trump would want this, but it is just crazy. And there's more to this ad. This is a 2-minute long ad. So let's continue.
Okay.
Set him to motion activated to surprise his fans. Fans.
My fins are big. I have the biggest fins. No fish have fins like me.
Or turn him on and let his inspiring words delight the crowd.
All the fish love Trumpy. They just love me.
Catch Trumpy Trout for yourself or someone you love.
Oh, they can try, but they can't. They just can't.
Wait, what do you think the actors and actresses in this commercial are feeling at this moment?
And it's not even like a good impression of Trump either.
No.
It's maybe a little better than mine.
I was just saying it's like a bad like Alec Baldwin impression of Trump.
And it's got the logo here, Top Dog. I think this is, I looked it up. It's like it does all these as seen on TV things,
right?
Yeah. So it's a real company, and they're, like I said, they're promoting this on pro-Trump media. Like if you're a Newsmax, you watched this, oh yeah, I think our viewers are really gonna like this. This is really something in line with, are they just that stupid?
See, like that's the thing. I was like, if you said this was airing on CNN or MSNBC, I feel like this would make so much more sense.
Right, and people will be like, come on, nobody's really gonna buy this. This is ridiculous. The Trumpy bear's not this dumb. Let's, like.
Well, it does like the big fins thing.
Yeah. My fins are so big, and they do have very large fins on this thing. It says make fishing great again.
Yeah.
On the outside of this stand that this thing is on. It's crazy.
Treat yourself to this limited edition Trumpy Trout for just $59.99. It comes with your official Make Fishing Great Again certificate of authenticity. Order right now and we'll instantly upgrade you to the deluxe version with desktop stand and Trumpy Trout jingle free.
He is the greatest trout without a doubt, the biggest fish.
And for even more fun, we'll give you a discount when you buy more than one.
We got the shoreline secure. No bass in this pond.
Supplies are limited, so don't miss your chance to hook the greatest fish of all time.
I am the greatest trout, and there is no doubt.
This is a limited edition collectible from Top Dog Direct. Order now at TrumpyTrout.com. That's TrumpyTrout.com.
what is happening? Okay, the video is legitimately wild. Like the footage they got for this thing. They had him in a limo where it was like an actual like limo driver, and then the camera keeps going while it's driving and just shows this little like Trumpy trout thing in the backseat with all these paparazzi taking its picture.
No one's shooting at it, though. It's not very accurate.
Okay, and it has a jingle?
Yeah.
If I get the...
He is the greatest trout.
What was it? It was like the
Without a
upgraded
doubt.
or the
Well, it's
pro
if
version?
you order now, you get the special deluxe edition that comes with the stand and the jingle. There's not a regular version. There's only one version of this thing.
It comes with a stand.
Well, you can't, if you hang it on the wall, how are you going to take advantage of its special suction mouth? You're going to have to be able to put it at, desk height to really get full use out of your Trumpy trout.
Wild.
So
not really beating the weird thing here.
No, not at all. So not like a real substantive Fox in the Head this week, but I had to share that. If any of you out there had not heard of this or have not seen this yet, you're welcome. Please buy me one. Thank you.
Are you sure it's not a parody? God, it's so weird.
Nobody's ever called me weird. I'm a lot of things, but weird I'm not. No, we're not weird people. We're actually just the opposite. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
We're just going to keep talking about weird stuff today because apparently that's all Republicans are now.
That's the GOP platform. It just says, keep it weird.
Oh, man. Let's get those slogans going. I want them to do that just like how they try to take the deplorables thing. Like, we're weirdos and we are proud.
Yeah.
But the weirdest of them all, the Heritage Foundation, came out with Project 2025, which has now taken the country by storm.
I'm sorry, what? I've never heard of it. I don't know what you're talking about.
And it has been a nuisance for the Trump campaign. So much so that the director of the Project 2025, Paul Dance, has recently resigned from his position.
Oh, you mean the person who J.D. Vance wrote the foreword to his book?
Yes.
Yeah, oh, that guy. He doesn't have any connections to this. You're just making all these insinuations.
Oh, yeah. Also, I've been receiving a lot of mailers recently from the Wisconsin GOP with big bold letters that just say, Donald Trump does not support Project 2025.
That's because even the weird-ass Republican Party admits that, yeah, Project 2025 is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It's pretty extreme. And they're going to say that they don't have anything to do with it.
Of course they do.
But just ignore the fact that over 80% of the people that wrote this came from the Trump administration. Ignore that fact. They don't have anything to do with this.
Well, when you thought that was over, and we just had the 900-page document and the subsequent book that J.D. Vance wrote forward to, ProPublica, literally the best journalistic outlet ever, obtained over 14 hours of secret training videos from Project 2025's Presidential Administration Academy. They obtained 14 training videos totaling more than 14 hours of content. 29 of the 36 speakers in those videos have worked for Donald Trump in some capacity, whether it was in the office or with his campaigns. These videos were designed to train potential appointments that would be made if Trump were to win in November, and they don't hold back. Dan Huff, a former legal advisor in the Trump administration, said in one of his videos, if you're not on board with helping implement a dramatic course correction because you're afraid it'll damage your future employment prospects, it'll harm you socially, look, I get it. That's a real danger. It's a real thing. But please, do us all a favor and sit this one out.
We know everyone's going to hate you.
Right.
When
and your career will be over.
When you turn the country into the Handmaid's Tale. So if you're worried about that, if you're not already despised as a lizard person like Stephen Miller, just get out of our way and we'll take care of it.
Right. Which, again, I love the idea of, hey, this is going to destroy your career if you let us do this.
Well, and your social life. Your family is not going to talk to you.
Everyone's going to hate you.
Yeah.
So let's keep going. Set the guy right into the camera saying, we should do this more.
Obviously, we'll link to all of the videos so that you can not watch them, just like we did not watch all of them because
my God, they're rough.
I value my life and time more than that. But they'll be there in the show notes. We'll also link to the ProPublica article about this. But in an effort to bring more attention on Project 2025, because I feel like people have stopped talking about it now that it was kind of brought up nationally.
Yeah.
And, Trump had to say that he's never heard of it. He doesn't know who any of these people are.
I actually haven't heard much coverage about the videos themselves, which I'm a little sad about because they're crazy.
Yeah. So let's kind of go through a couple of them. You picked a video, I picked a video. We went through, grabbed some clips from it. So let's share what we found. You can go first here.
So I picked a doozy, and I didn't mean to pick a doozy. I legitimately, Jason, I wanted to go through with our plan of you'll take 3 to 4 videos. I'll take 3 to 4 videos. I'm sure they're not too bad. We'll take a couple clips from each and then we'll call it a day. Oh, this was rough. It was really bad. So the video I watched was called Left-Wing Code and Biased Language, featuring Katie Sullivan, former Assistant Attorney General in the Trump administration, and Bethany Kozma, former Deputy Chief of Staff in the Trump administration.
Which would be one of the highest officials.
Yes. So again, Trump would know these people.
And now they're all working for the Heritage Foundation.
Yes. This was the first video I clicked on, and this is how they started it.
Hi, I'm Katie Sullivan, and just a normal American woman. But to the left, that makes me a cisgendered ethno-imperialist birthing person with pronouns she, her. Words like that are quite a mouthful, and it's one America needs to spit out before we choke on it.
That was the first thing I saw when I dove into this little thing we were doing. And I'm like, oh my God. Now, just to set the scene, because again, this is an audio medium, they're just sitting down like 2 wine moms about to have a very in-depth conversation about the local black family in their neighborhood.
Well, and I'll tell you, just from listening to that and just being like, and I'm a normal American, I was like, oh God, David Icke is right.
Right.
The lizard people are among us.
Stares blankly into the camera again, like she just got out of this worst hangover of her life and goes, hello, I'm a normal American woman.
I was like, is this like an audition tape for V?
It was so weird. This? So, okay. After that, they describe what the video is. And it's basically just the two of them getting really upset about how, quote, the left controls language in society. However, 2 minutes in, while trying to explain what their video is about, they go full Godwin and already evoke Stalin and Hitler.
Perhaps the most effective tool the left wields is their ability to engage in constant subliminal advertising through their narrative, words, and phrases. Marxism became socialism, then democratic socialism, and is now represented by the terms social justice and equity. This is perhaps the most scary of all.
Katie, what brings to mind is the quote, "He who controls the language rules the world." It's attributed to Joseph Stalin and other tyrants. And George Orwell stated, "He who controls language controls culture." Even more, Hitler and others lived by the creed. If you repeat a lie often enough, people will believe it. Without doubt, it's true. Language is a powerful and often controlling tool.
Okay, first off, look, Jason, I know we're not the best at reading scripts and lines.
She was going to say uses, and then she said wields. I would have taken that one over again.
Right, and no, we are not.
Video.
And I don't know what your video was like. In mine, they definitely did not do this in one take. This was all heavily edited. Mm-hmm. They could have definitely redid that.
Yeah.
But okay, it's just
Marxism was rebranded as socialism, and then democratic socialism. Okay, so you're saying that pretty much all of the Scandinavian countries are Marxist?
Yes.
Well, Marxism works then.
Well, and then just equity.
Right, and social justice.
Yeah, which I'm like, whoa, what a leap. We don't know what words mean. I'm Katie Sullivan. So that's the basic premise of this video, is that the left apparently is changing definitions of words to control and manipulate people into some other narrative, I guess, that they don't like. So what examples do they have? Well, let's look at how the left left supposedly is controlling the narrative about climate change for a much more nefarious purpose.
So I remember when I was in school, in elementary school, we were taught that we were all going to be frozen over by an ice age. And of course, this was terrifying. And then in the 80s, it was acid rain. We were all going to die from the acid rain. And then it moved to global warming, which I think, you know, most of the people watching this tape will remember. That was during the Obama administration.
Yes.
And then science comes along and disproves the global warming theory in large part, and we have one of the most frigid winters ever known. And then the next thing you know, they're calling it climate change. Now, I always understood that climate change meant seasons. Our climate does change all the time, but of course that's not what's meant by the left.
They don't stop. Climate change, allegedly, is everywhere. And if the American people elect a conservative president, his administration will have to eradicate climate change references from absolutely everywhere. And according to our intelligence community, the number one threat facing our country today is, drumroll, climate change. Not Russia, not China, not AI, climate change. Now, when I think of climate change, I immediately think of population control, don't you? I think about the people who don't want you to have children because of the impact on the environment. Perhaps not everyone will make that connection, but after spending time in the international space trying to protect life, I can tell you that this is part of their ultimate goal, to control people.
So
there comes the weird GOP again.
So where do you want to begin? Do you want to begin with the story about how we already debunked global warming?
Well, and they told us about acid rain, which, you know, we stopped because we stopped using certain types of coal that were causing acid rain. That made that problem go away. But it was just a hoax, like the ozone layer. And now they're saying global warming, and then we had one of the most frigid winters ever. We all remember that, right?
Was that the polar vortex winter, maybe?
I don't know what she's talking about. You know, that winter that none of us could go outside.
Then she went like, well, and I understood climate change to be like the seasons. Jason, these people were high-ranking officials of our country.
Well, they were in the Donald Trump administration.
But they had power.
Yeah, I know. So did his kids.
Oh, and then, yeah, the whole like, ooh, what a shocker. People care about climate change. Not Russia.
Right, well,
not China.
According to the national intelligence agencies, while she was in office, so during the Trump administration, they said the biggest threat to our nation is climate change.
Yes.
More so than Russia, more so than China, more so than AI, which,
yeah, where is AI coming in?
And that just means that it's all a giant conspiracy. And really, they're trying to control our lives and kill people. And again, this is the weird.
Yeah, so Jason, how often do you think about population control when you, when you talk about climate change?
When you hear climate change.
The way she said was so good, too. Now, when I think about climate change, I think of population control.
And she morphs into Alex Jones.
Yeah, don't you? And everyone's like, the hell did you just say? Wild. I mean, she does talk later on. I cut out because they just rant forever about how someone told her, I guess, like, or she told somebody that she had like 3 kids, and hypothetical libtard comes up and like, wow, that's really bad for the environment to have 3 kids. And she proudly responded saying, well, I'd have 10 if I could.
Well, why can't you? What's wrong with you? Have more kids. That's what God wants.
Apparently, be fruitful and multiply. But it's like, these people are weird, man. Like, you're right. All the climatologists, they're spending their lives doing this.
And then she said, well, science debunked it.
Right.
No, not at all.
Oh, my God.
And then Hillary Clinton puts fetuses in Pepsi.
So I don't have a quip for this one, but they basically go on to talk about how the left keeps talking about human rights, and they're really upset about the fact that we keep talking about human rights. Cosmer says at one point, quote, rights. The left is always coming up with new rights. And Sullivan responds by getting mad that Democrat uses the term undocumented immigrants as opposed to illegal aliens, and likens the term to using undocumented homeowner to describe someone who breaks into your home. Gotcha, libs. So it's just a bunch of crazy nonsense. I mean, that again, these are two former high-ranking officials of our country, and this is the crap they're espousing. I have one more clip from this video. There wasn't really like, because there was just a bunch of random stuff, because there was no actual, like, they try to always loop it into their theme of like, oh, the left controls language, but it was just more about them venting about how society doesn't care about them or their ideals because they're just horrible, terrible people. So I just have a compilation of a couple more fun clips of more crazy things they said.
The left got very creative years ago and started using different words to make abortion sound a little less like murder. When I was at USAID, managers were giving training and were told that when they have new staff or have a staff meeting, they should go around the room and ask everyone what their pronouns are. Katie, if that happened to you, what would you do?
I think political appointees, Bethany, great question, need to expect that they are going to be tested by career staff the day they walk in. So the answer is simple. We're here to implement the president's priorities and agenda. We are not here to discuss pronouns.
The idea that gender is fluid is evil, and it is a major initiative of the Biden administration.
As we have discussed, certain words and phrases used together have hidden definitions. A really good example is social emotional learning. That's actually the new buzzword for CRT, or critical race theory. Here's a tip. When you see phrases, any phrase like this, one that sounds innocuous, ask your careers to identify the origin of that phrase. Where did it come from? Why are you using that phrase particularly? What does it mean based on the original intent of those words? And then I would highly recommend you start your own research.
Do your own research.
Yep. Nothing but the best from Project 2025.
Well, I think one thing that kind of popped out at me in that is, again, use of terms that you don't hear normally. Careers and political appointees. That is a big theme throughout all of these videos because they are trying to set up this
almost like a dichotomy,
right, of appointed by the president or the president's staff, federal employees, the political appointees, and the careers. The federal employees that are hired to do a specific job and are experts in their field and not appointed by someone for political reasons. That there is like this war going on in the federal government between these two groups. And specifically, the video that I picked, political appointees and the federal workforce, is all about that. The presenter is Spencer, I'll call him Cretin. I think he pronounces his name slightly differently, but whatever. He served in the Trump administration as special assistant to the president and associate director of presidential personnel. You would be very aware of what his job is, Joe. He basically suggested people to be hired by the president. He was basically the guy in charge of coming up with the recommendations for who should be in these political appointments. The first clip that we're going to play is basically him giving, I feel, a pretty good summary of what the goal of Project 2025 as a whole is.
Hi, my name is Spencer Cradian, and I serve at the Heritage Foundation as Associate Director of the 2025 Presidential Transition Project, or Project 2025. This is a coalition of more than 40 conservative organizations in D.C. and out of D.C. And our goal is to ensure that the conservative administration that takes office in January of 2025 is ready on day one. Ready with people, ready with policy, and ready with plans.
So I think that's very accurate. That is the point of Project 2025, to give Donald Trump. There's no other Republican candidate for president. There's no one else that can be in 2025. If Donald Trump were to win the election, to give him a roadmap of essentially how to take over the federal government.
Correct. Also, I like the fact that he had to clarify organizations inside DC and outside of DC, just like in case we were missing anybody, just want to make sure we covered the spectrum.
Creighton then goes on to describe the difference between federal appointees who are political appointees serving the president versus the much larger federal workforce of, as I said before, qualified, dedicated, and nonpartisan employees who are specialists in their field, and why the latter group is bad, actually.
Now, in Washington, D.C., in this town, you frequently hear people say, my dad worked for 30 years at the Department of Labor, or my sister served 5 different presidents as a Foreign Service officer. Well, chances are that is referring to federal employees who are hired through the normal hiring process. There are all sorts of rules and regulations that govern that process. If you want a federal job, they look at your qualifications, your expertise, your work history, your salary history. It's supposed to be competitive and objective. But the point is that those federal employees are not at risk of losing their jobs with a change in presidential administration. In fact, they have incredible job security. You've probably read stories or heard examples, but the federal government is notorious for its inability to fire virtually anybody. Even if an employee is in trouble, there are hearings, appeals, benefit of the doubt always granted, and it's very rare that the federal workforce will actually fire one of its own. But accepted service, the kind that political appointees engage in, is not subject to these same rules and these same standards. These 3,000 to 4,000 appointees serve at the pleasure of the president, and they can be removed by the president at any time, so they don't enjoy the usual perks of federal service. But the converse of that, the 3,000 to 4,000 political appointees don't apply through the competitive process. Their qualifications are not evaluated by career federal HR departments. They're there because the president wants them there, and they serve the president. Consider this whole situation. There are just between 3,000 and 4,000 political appointees sitting atop millions of career federal employees and bureaucrats. Is that really enough? The president brought those few thousand people with him to change the direction of the government, and the president is expected to deliver what he ran on. The appointees are the ones who make it happen, those 3,000 to 4,000 people. In fact, it would be impossible for the president to change anything without them. Is 3,000 to 4,000 political appointees enough to turn around that federal battleship? Think about it.
So the people that are qualified,
yeah, I'm thinking about it,
for their positions, the ones that are evaluated fairly.
Yeah, objectively, you may even say.
Right.
You may even call this like a meritocracy.
Those employees, it turns out, are actually really difficult to fire without a good reason. They actually have protections in place where someone listens to both sides of why they're going to be terminated. And actually
has HR protections.
Right. And actually determines if that's valid or not.
Right. Like how, what did you say? Like the standard hiring practices?
Right. They actually have rules and regulations. Ugh.
Okay, so that was my favorite part about this entire clip, which is like, so the standard hiring practice that you may see is that when people apply, they put their salary expectations, in their request,
their work history,
their
qualifications.
They're evaluated by their qualifications, and they get hired if they're the best fit for the job.
Disgusting.
Now hear me out. What if we didn't have that?
What if instead we just had a president picking everyone?
Well, literally, it's like, hey, instead of having the best people for the job, what if I hired my friends?
Yep.
That's literally what he said.
Mm-hmm.
And the entire time while I was listening to that, I'm just going, are you hearing yourself? You're the ones who keep talking about meritocracies and objective, like equity and things like that.
Right. No DEI hires.
Right.
And then you make the case for
DEI hires?
There's only like 4,000 people people that the president gets to put in positions of power. What if we made the executive branch all powerful? They're already now, thanks to the Supreme Court, immune from any prosecution. What if we just let them
Just run
entirely
wild.
replace the federal system with their hand-picked sycophants? Then we could really monitor your menstrual cycle.
Could you imagine having almost like the entirety of like all our agencies being partisan hires? Like it's hard.
And they get hired and fired with every administration.
Right. So yeah, well that's the problem, right? It's like now you have to pick what side you're for sure going to be on, because again, like we're weird, right? I understand that like, we're political crazy people who like are following this and stuff like that.
Yeah, not everyone is quite as partisan.
Right. Like I'm thinking of some random like maybe IRS agent or something like that, right? And now you have to pick an administration or a party that you for sure belong to, because like as someone who's done that himself, I can no longer work for Republicans anymore. Like it will not happen.
Right.
I cannot. I have a work history working for Democrats. I can't do that anymore. So if Democrats aren't in power, I don't have jobs anymore.
Right. It is literally like third world countries,
right,
where you just come into power and you just wipe out everyone.
Yeah.
That was part of the previous administration.
And then there's like no continuity ever. There's constantly changing procedures and processes that just have no relevance to each other. Again, these are for like basic functions of the government. We already talked about how dysfunctional the government is. Could you imagine how dysfunctional it would be if we turned over the entirety of the government every single time?
Right.
That would be insane.
And you have to be loyal to the party in charge. Otherwise, they're just going to fire you for no reason.
Right.
That's why he said, well, current federal employees have too much protection.
Right. Well,
you can't get rid of them if they're not listening to you. If they tell you that what you want to do is illegal.
I was just going to say that. Well, think about this then. Think about the basic things that lots of government agents have to do. And I'm going back to like the IRS age or something like that. What if they're forced to or asked to make like same-sex marriage a bigger cultural war issue again? So they start, I don't know, auditing more same-sex couples for some reason. It's just very wild things that could happen to our very basic needs of our government, because we've introduced this insane ideological line that just doesn't have to be there.
Right. And is not there and has never been there. As
Correct.
part of our government. And then
they're the originalists, man. What was happening?
Yeah. So moving on in the video, we then hear from Caitlin Stump, who served as the Cretan's deputy in the Trump administration and is now a senior program manager at the Heritage Foundation, about how important it is for the next conservative president to have firm control over the Presidential Personnel Office, or PPO, and the Office of Personnel Management, or OPM, to ensure that they can hire only the people they want and fire anyone who opposes the president.
An important difference to remember is who does the evaluation of a candidate's qualifications. When it comes to political appointments, PPO is the agency, acting on behalf of the president, determining if a candidate is qualified. It's not relevant if the media or other people in the administration disagree about a person's qualifications. If PPO believes in them, then they have the job. Now, a brief digression is in order here. We just talked about political hiring, which PPO does. But PPO still works with the Office of Personnel Management, or OPM. That office is responsible for creating HR policy for all federal employees. Suppose you have a federal employee who is delinquent or failing at their job. How many warnings should be issued to this person? Who should be responsible in issuing them? What if the employee alleges that despite what it looks like, they are actually suffering from retaliation or discrimination based on their sex or race? OPM, OPM, OPM. OPM is the entity that would deal with all of these questions. One thing we understood during our time in the Trump administration is the importance of retaining political control over OPM. There were several career employees in powerful positions that hindered the work of the president and his staff. These were later replaced by political appointees.
So there you have it. We want full control over the process of hiring and firing all federal employees. You think you have HR? Not anymore, you don't, because we'll control that as well. And why do they want to do that? She actually says it. Because during the Trump administration, there were federal employees who actually hindered Trump's policies.
Yep.
And why did they do that? Well, we heard a lot of them in the January 6th hearings because Trump wanted to do a ton of illegal things in order to retain the office of the president.
He literally wanted to do a coup.
When he lost the vote. And they want to make sure that that won't happen again. That is the point of Project 2025. To allow Donald Trump or whoever the next Republican president is to get rid of, to purge the federal government of every one of the qualified, vetted employees that are just doing their jobs and replace them with partisan sycophants loyal to the president who will just do whatever they're told without question. And this is all just a continuation and expansion of Donald Trump's Schedule F executive order, which he issued in October 2020, which was intended to remove protections from those non-appointed federal employees and reclassify them to the new Schedule F status so that they could be replaced. But because this was done so late in his term, Trump never got the chance to follow through on this plan, and it was rescinded early in the Biden administration. So that's what this is. Trump doesn't know anything about it. He did it. He doesn't agree with it, but these are his employees talking about his plans and how they can be used to completely seize control of the government in a way that he failed to do previously and bend it to the will of the same office that he is running for.
So what you're saying is there is no connection between Donald Trump and Project 2025.
It's just a complete fabrication made up by the fake news media, who are all just a bunch of socialist, Marxist, communists. Well, they're run by the Democrat Party, who are lizards from outer space trying to control our population.
Well, I mean, I don't have a clip for that, but that's basically how the working with media video basically went down. And to finish it off, I have a couple of extra clips from other videos that didn't quite make our episode because we're already running long. So here's a quick little montage of a couple more videos for you, and we'll talk about that to finish it off. So enjoy.
The American people who vote for a conservative presidential administration, they're not reading the New York Times. They're not reading the Washington Post. Actually, to the contrary, if those outlets publish something, they're going to assume it's false. So the only way to reach them with any voice of credibility is through working with conservative media outlets. For many of these people, if it's not in these conservative outlets, it didn't happen or it's not true.
If you reduce it to writing, maybe you can protect it under some of these exemptions, but man, that's a lot of a fight. You're probably better off going down to the canteen, getting a cup of coffee, talking it through, and making the decision, as opposed to sending them an email and creating a thread that accountable.us or one of those other groups is going to come back and seek, and you're going to have to explain why you're withholding it, and you're going to fight in court. It's going to be a lot of expense. It's an email that's better resolved with a meeting.
If you've been convicted of a crime, you will not be serving in the federal government. Crimes such as fraud, embezzlement, and tax evasion show a lack of moral character, just like similar white-collar offenses that are highly frowned upon and will bar you from service.
I just had to throw that last one in there.
Well, if you're convicted of fraud, you shouldn't serve in the government.
And they speak badly of your character.
Convicted of fraud?
And not anyone that I know of.
A few months ago. No. 34 counts of
No.
felony fraud.
I'm sure he has impeccable character, though.
Nah. And also, don't put anything in writing.
You're right. To avoid transparency laws.
And
okay, wait, hang on. Before we even move on from that, said the guy who's speaking on camera and recording it for the world to see.
And also, if conservative media says it's not true, then conservatives will believe it's not true regardless of the facts.
Way to just say it all. Just admit it all to the world, man. I'm not surprised by how blatant all this is. I'm just disappointed. I don't know. Like,
I mean, it is as bad as
as
everyone thinks it is.
I guess it just makes me angry because when we ever talk about like these things like the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025 and all this crap that goes along with it, where it's like, hey, you're not paying attention to this crazy thing that's happening. Like, you should pay attention to this insanely well-funded network of like shadow people. It gives us like this veneer.
Who picked like the last 6 conservative justices on the Supreme Court.
It just gives this veneer of like these smoke-filled rooms with very smart people who are just strategically planning and all this other stuff. And then we see behind the curtain, like, they're all just crazy weirdos. And they're so dumb. Like, all like the amount of things I saw in there, I'm like, that's not how just basic facts work, man. And then they're going out saying, well, you need to do your own research. You need to make sure you're prepared and do your own homework before you come to your job. I'm like, did you?
And these aren't just random people. These are all people that were in positions of power in the Trump administration and will be again.
Absolutely.
The only way to stop this is literally to never again in this country have a conservative president.
Yeah. And again, it makes me angry thinking about that because I mean, maybe this is just a bias within me. Even though I am very progressive, I know we're both very progressive, I don't like saying things like that. Personally, I don't like saying never vote for a Republican again because I know how hackish that sounds, but kinda.
Yeah, I mean, this is what the conservative movement is.
You got whack jobs who are porn addicts on one side who are black Nazis, and then you have also weirdly porn addicts in a different way who are also Nazis but not black on the other side. It's just one big circle, man. There is no Venn diagram. It's just one big circle of insanity.
And the thing is, the Heritage Foundation is not like a fringe group.
They're the Republican Party.
Yes.
That's what they are. Like, this is the main organization and think tank of the Republican Party.
Well, and as Spencer Creighton said, this is a coalition of over 40 conservative groups, both inside and outside Washington. This is the mainstream conservative movement right now. Their plan is to completely take over the federal government so that they can implement all of their weird dystopian nonsense.
And I wish we were being hyperbolic. Legitimately, like,
you just heard it.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's why I think these videos are important because you literally hear them say it. It's not even embedded in a 900-page document at this point. They're just saying it on camera. And thank God ProPublica is as good as what they are and was able to obtain these because they're just saying it on camera. It's so stupid that we are still divided in this country right now where you have half of voters still thinking, well, you know what? I'm going to give these people a chance.
Maybe Kamala is too much of a communist.
You know, when I think about climate change, I do think about population control.
I think the White House will smell like curry if she gets
Oh, my God. Well, that's all I got.
See you next week.
Thank you for listening. We hope to see you in the next episode. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at ThinkProPod. You can email us at thinkpropod@gmail.com. And remember, when in doubt, think progressively.
They're cheering and they're excited to see President come.
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm going to come.